I think we are good to go. I'm gonna chit chat just a little bit to make sure everything's working. Looks like my software says it's go. I can see everybody chatting in the chat. Hey guys. I don't think John's from Krypton. I think that might be a joke. Hello from Kenya, India, South Africa, New York, Chicago. And I'm still waiting for YouTube. Come on, YouTube. You can do it. I believe in you. Yay! Excellent. Good morning, everybody. There's going to be maybe a little bit of a lag today because it took so long for my streaming software to start, but we should be good. Today, we're going to jump back in to automating data pipelines. I'm going to try to be better about taking questions at the end and not getting distracted, but I get so excited. You guys ask such good questions, and I'm like, oh, I want to answer this right now. So I've got my notepad. Actually, I've got 2 notepads so that I have lots of room to write questions down, and I can't be like, oh, I ran out of room. I can't write down any more questions. And I did just drop a pen, but that's okay because I have extra pens. So we are going to talk today about data validation. And people are saying they can see and hear, which is fantastic. So yesterday we talked a little bit about data versioning, and oh, I should have pulled it up. There was a really good talk from one of the Netflix engineers about why they do versioning. Netflix. Actually, it might have been validation versioning. Sorry, I'm getting distracted already. The Kaggle, the vacuum is off. Was Kaggle.com down? I don't believe so. Yeah, here we go. So it was this crisis to calm story. And Lavanya, I'm assuming that's how that's said. There's a transcript and there's also a video if you're interested in checking it out. Talked about data versioning and data validation that they do at Netflix. Is anyone else hearing an echo? No. Okay, excellent. I'm checking my equipment really quick because one time I did upload a video with an extremely bad echo and it was impossible to hear. But if you're interested in hearing more about sort of data validation in a commercial context, this Netflix talk was really good and I enjoyed it. So that's my 2-second plug. And she also talks about data versioning, so it's relevant, I think. Today, however, we're going to talk about something a little bit different. We're going to talk about validation and also creating data sets from URLs. And we're actually going to do the data set creation first this time because the data validation requires the having a data set in the first place. Sorry, I saw that someone asked for a link and I will get that really quickly because today I set up my laptop. It'll take just a second, and I didn't actually put it in the link for the video again. Sorry about that. I'm just getting the link to share. So we're going to be creating a data set from a URL, and we don't have to actually do a lot of the engineering here because Kaggle recently launched a feature to do that. If you've never created a data set or gotten data from a URL before, it's fairly common. So some of the places where I've gotten data from URLs has been especially maps. So shape files or polygons or information like that is often shared via URL. And I'm pasting the link right now. Oh, somebody beat me to it. But now I can approve links. So if you guys put links in, I can make them actually show up. Right. So if data is served via some sort of application programmatic interface or API, it's very common for that to the endpoint for the data that you actually need to go to get the specific data that you want is almost always going to be a URL. And this has to do with the way that RESTful APIs are set up. I'm going to be honest, when people start talking about API design, my eyes glaze over a little bit. I think it's partially because I'm not like a web developer, so it's less relevant to me, but I do consume things from APIs. And the idea for REST is that there's like a very small vocabulary of things that you can do, and that it should be the same across all RESTful APIs. So you have this sort of like consistent language you can use. And they also don't store state. So you can't be like, when you're interacting with it, you don't have like a little token that says like, oh, I just ate a hamburger, I guess, and now I might need a napkin. It is stateless. Maybe that wasn't the best description of state. And the idea behind RESTful APIs and the sort of whole REST framework was introduced in this dissertation, and I'm realizing that I'm not actually very zoomed in. This dissertation, which I provided a link to, and you guys can read. It's kind of slow going if you're, again, not super interested in web development, but if that is your piece of cake, then this will probably be very interesting to you. The most important thing for us to know as data scientists is that when data is exposed through an API, you do need the specific URL, and often the query that you have will be in the URL itself. And I see Akshay says, finding URLs was challenging. Please elaborate on that. We will. Yeah, it can be a little bit hard to find the specific URL that points to the thing that you need. Often this is what a API that you're interacting with is doing. It's constructing the URLs for you, given your input, and then going and getting the data from it. And it's a little bit weird today because I'm actually asking you to like find a URL yourself with your fingers, which is a little bit weird. If you have your own data and you want to connect it for a URL, you're going to have to serve it from some sort of URL. Most cloud services have one. I did when we did the dashboarding event, one of the things I mentioned was putting data in buckets on GCP. So you can serve it that way, and any cloud provider will have pretty much the same option. But if you don't have data, there's also a lot of data that's available through public APIs, and it is fairly common for, at least for me, to get data from a public API to add to a project that I'm already working with, so that I join data, from the internet or some sort of source that's relevant to my current work with the private data that I have. So this will also work for that. And couple places you can find data. And no, you don't need to see the first session to get the second one. My goal is for them to be independent, but you are welcome to join for the first one as well if you like. So a couple places that I like to look for data, because I'm in the US and I work with a lot of data from the US, I find the data.gov portal to be really helpful. Derek says, is finding the URL the same as getting the endpoint of an API? Yes, if it's an endpoint that serves data. So these are organized by topic, and I can sort of show you some examples of things that are not going to make really good data sets on Kaggle. So, oh, this one's different. Oh, there we go. Under data will be where the data is. So this one points to a CSV, so this would probably be a good one. This one points to a PDF. PDFs generally don't make great data sets because you have to extract the data from them, but if that's the only way that the data that you're interested, if you want to work with data programmatically, if you want to look at data with your eyes, PDFs are great. Websites, a little bit hit or miss, may or may not be super helpful for you. Also, I think we have the American Community Survey all cleaned and tabular on Kaggle as well already. FeedGrains database, and because all of these are pointers to different websites, at least in the US, that are maintained by different people, they're not going to all be of the same sort of like quality. So you can see, for example, that all of these links are broken. And if I go to here and I try to download it, it gives me a 404 error. So you may have to do a little bit of digging to find the exact a data set that you can use. And I actually had a specific question that I was interested in, and I did a little bit of digging earlier. So my family raised sheep. Once me and my sibling both left and decided not to farm, they sort of stopped doing that. But at least historically, I have cared a lot about sheep auctions in Central Virginia. And I'm just approving a link from Ryan of the Google dataset search. That's also a really, really nice place to find datasets. So I care a lot about, like, personally in my life, the sheep auctions in Central Virginia. So my family would usually go to Rockingham to sell our sheep, and these point to these sort of .txt files. So this is the data that I wanted to create a data set from. And I mean, finding data is definitely one of the more challenging parts of the job, especially if you're looking for something very specific. I've had very patchy luck finding data from Africa and various African countries, for example. Some places have a really strong sort of like open data infrastructure. Some places are working on building it. Some places it's just not a priority for the government, which I get. So yeah, it can be challenging to find the data that you want. But today we're going to be working with this sort of awful text data file. So this is the information on all of the animals that were sold at Rockingham this week. So you can see that there were, quite a few cattle, a lot of slaughter cattle. So feed your cattle, you would feed, and slaughter cattle are ready for immediate consumption. Yash had a question. Are all data sets open for use in production? So it's going to depend on the data set. One of the reasons I like the data.gov is that any data that has been released by the US government is under the most permissive possible license. It's in the public domain, so you can do whatever you want with it. So US government data, if it's been released to the public, you can put it into production immediately, and you don't have to worry about licenses or anything. Depending on the other APIs you're using, you're probably going to have to abide by the developers agreement. So the Twitter API, which I've used quite a lot, has very strict restrictions on what you can do with the data, how much of it you can use, where you can put it, how much you can store, that sort of thing. So it's good to look into the specific API that you're using. And I mean, that's I don't know, if you're really into the data ecosystems, I guess that could be the fun part of the job. But at least for me, it's one of the more tedious parts of the job. Chasing down specific data sets and licenses. A little bit of coffee. So the thing that I am most interested in here is actually the fact that no lambs were sold. So you can see that we had feeder cattle, feeder steers, feeder Holstein steers, so Holstein's a milk breed, some slaughter cattle, slaughter bulls, and then calves returned to the farm, so these are ones that weren't sold. But you can see that at Rockingham, they didn't sell any lambs. But if I look at Central Virginia Livestock Auction, I can see that they sold 7 lambs. And this is sort of like at least in Virginia, this is sort of like a low production sending animals to auction sort of thing. We tend to have a little bit of a bump around, say, Easter, when people might be thinking about buying lamb. And you can see that the Central Virginia Livestock Auction also sold hogs. So simple, outside US, can you use the data? Absolutely. Yeah, it's public domain. It's for anybody who wants it. So my thought was that I was going to create a data set for all of these Virginia period livestock auctions, and then set it to update. So you can see that these are the weekly auctions, and I should be able to say update once a week, assuming that they upload something that has the same file name and same endpoint, and I don't know that that's going to be the case, but I'm going to try it and then check back in a week and see if it continued to work. So let's do that. There's instructions here if you need them. I'm going to create a data set. Kaggle.com/datasets. And I think, if I can remember correctly, it is, I don't remember. There's a specific URL that also opens the little modal to upload a data set. And I think it's modal equals true, maybe? Yeah, question mark modal equals true. And because I'm creating data set from a link, I'm going to click on this link here, and I'm going to call this Virginia Lamb auction data. And then I'm going to add a URL, and I need a URL that points to a file. So this is a text file. You can see the URL happens to end in .txt. It would be okay if it didn't end in .txt, as long as it was still pointing to a text file. And actually, I'm just going to copy the link address. I'm going to put these next to each other so it's less time to paste back and forth. And then I'm going to say add remote file, and it worked. This is a TXT document. And the title of the file isn't especially informative, but if we look at the file, we can see that the information about the file is actually in the file itself, and this is very common in US government data, to the point where you'll get a CSV, and the first 5 lines of the CSV will be, here's where the data's from, compiled by. So that was 1, and I'm going to do all of these if they all work. And if you get an error that's something like, take me down to the Virginia one, copy link address. Oh, interesting. So we got Madison, Northern Virginia. Okay, it seems to be working. If you get a error that's like you must resolve errors before creating your data set, and you have a little red triangle here, the problem then is that we can't create a connector to that data set, and that could be for a number of reasons. The link could have a redirect. In the design of the API, they may not support a head call, which we use to verify the data. So if that happens, your best bet is to just try using a different data set, which I know is a little bit frustrating, but that's where we are right now. And these are fairly new features, so we're working to improve them. All right, 320, and then we need this one, which is the seasonal one, and then we just need Winchester, and we should be good to go. And these ones aren't going to update every week. And copy that link address. Bam. Okay, and I'm not going to do a whole bunch of renaming or anything like that, but I am just going to create this data set with a bunch of text files in it. Question, what other extensions can I add into Kaggle? If you are talking about, oh, that's not so good. Well, oh, I clicked on something accidentally. Let's try this again. Let's try just doing a couple this time and see if maybe it's the number of files that's causing a problem. Virginia Lamb Auction. Processing data. Could not create dataset. Well, this is a new error that I have not gotten previously. So, does that link go to anything? No. Okay, so that's an error. Interesting. Maybe it's this particular file that's causing trouble. Let's try just the one that I care the most about and see if that works. All right, auction, A-U-C-T-I-O-N, data, create, processing. Okay, that time it worked. Interesting. I wonder what the problem was. It might have been that one of those specific files I was looking at was corrupted. Jay Harris says, can I upload other files after creating the dataset? I would like to add files, not simply update the dataset. Yep, absolutely. Can you search on Kaggle datasets that are updated every week? Probably the easiest way to do that would be to go to the datasets listing. Yeah, right now we don't have a filter specifically for things that have been updated every week, but you can go to updated and then, well, that's been deleted. If you find ones that have multiple versions, those are probably ones that are updated multiple times. So the ones that are maintained by Kaggle are updated, I think, daily, because we want to make sure that you have sort of like good utility data sets to just use. Yeah, but we don't have a filter for searching for data sets that are updated. All right, so let's just work with this one, and I will spend some time poking into that. My guess is that one of these files that we tried to upload the first time has some sort of problem with it. Let me actually try adding a second file so you can sort of see what that looks like. So if I want to add additional data, I can create a new dataset version, add a new file, add some notes, added Rockingham, nope, ham, nope, ham, there we go, and then create. And this should create a new version of the data. So it wasn't the Rockingham one that had a problem with it. So it was probably one of the specific files. You can see that I added Rockingham, and you can see that I added a file. And people are talking about the data that they uploaded. Harsh says, can we upload data from an endpoint which gives a JSON response? Yep, absolutely. JSON is one of our first class file formats on Kaggle, so you should not have a problem with that. In theory. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to set this to, because it is weekly, I'm going to set it to update weekly. It's US government data, so the license is CC0, public domain. Livestock auction, AUCTION, data from Virginia, US. I'm gonna save these changes. And really quickly, let's find a picture of a lamb, just so I can have a little photo. Someone says, wasn't able to get XLS student loan data to load. Yeah, sorry about that. It may take some digging to find a file that will work. You'll also get an error if you try to upload a dataset that already exists as a public dataset on Kaggle, and a pointer towards the specific file that already contains that data, so you don't have to redundantly upload stuff. And I've opened up a folder. Where's my downloads? There we go. I've opened up a folder on my desktop to add the picture that I just downloaded, so I can have a nice cover image. Beep. It just makes it easier to find my datasets if I have a nice image that's associated with them. And then I will make this public as soon as it updates. Excellent. And to make it public, sharing, make public. And once I make it public, it's not going to be able to go back to being made private. So make sure that you want to do this. Excellent. So now I'm going to think about the actual data validation. So I've got my data set all set up. I'm good to go. How do I know that my data is good? Austin says, is XLS supported? It's not supported. So it's not one of our first class file formats. Like, we don't have like nice visualization for it. I believe, I don't know, the datasets team works pretty fast, so they might have added something about that since the last time I checked. In general, and I'll talk about this, I am more comfortable working with data that is not designed to be open in Excel because it will do stuff to the data. The picture is misleading. It's not misleading. They're live lambs when they get sold. Ryan, when you set the option to update weekly, will it update without any additional inputs from the user? It should. Okay, so once you've got your data in, you probably want to validate it. The nice thing about loading data from URLs, it's pretty flexible. You can download a lot of stuff. So you can see that we downloaded this like sort of awkward, just straight text format. But we also probably want to check that the data that we downloaded matches our expectations for what that data looks like. So if you're using public data in your work, especially if you're using something like shapefiles or layers, you're probably going to want to check to make sure that the thing that you think you have downloaded matches what you are telling your code to look for later on. And just for the purposes of this event, I am considering validating and extracting and transforming data separately. So validating data is checking your data, making sure that it has the qualities that you think it does. Extracting and transforming is the data cleaning process. Rajani says, can you please show example on JSON file? Yeah, sure, let's find one. And Derek says, what are the first class data formats on Kaggle, JSON, CSV, XML? I believe it's those ones, definitely JSON and CSV. And I think I had an example of JSON data linked in here. Yeah, so a good example of JSON data is the Public Library of Science, which is an open science journal API. So here I've searched for bird, but I could search for anything. So maybe I'm interested in phonetics, which is true. So I've just changed the URL and I'm searching for phonetics in the title. And so we can see that this title says the use of phonetic motor invariants can improve automatic phoneme discrimination. Motor invariants, huh? Is this a JIC paper? It isn't. Anyway, sorry, I'm off topic. So I can take this URL and create a new data set from that. Can we delete a data file that is made public? Yes. I'm pretty sure. I said that very, yeah, you can delete a data set that's public. I said that very confidently, and I wanted to make sure that that actually was the case. All right, and then if we wanted to create a link from here, bam. Phonetics articles on PLOS. Oh, I didn't actually say to add it. You can see that it's correct. So even though it doesn't have the .json ending because it's pointing to a JSON file that fits the requirements of our connector, it works. And I can just create it. And I'll make this public. I think that's a useful data set that I might refer to back later. Yeah, so that's sort of the idea. And I am going to not continue dealing with that right now because I do want to talk a little bit more about validation. So one example of something that you might want to do during data cleaning and you might choose to do before validation, but that we're going to talk about later, is something like deduplication, so removing duplicate records. Oh, can you post the link to the lamb auction data? Oop, maybe. Oh, which of these tabs was it in? USDA lamb market report. Nope, that wasn't it. There we go. So it is, I'll just copy and paste it. Oop. Adding this in the chat, which it takes a second for the chat to upload. No, I want to send that. There we go. It takes a second for the chat to upload after the video is finished recording. So if you're watching this right after the live stream and you're like, I don't see the chat, it will be added, which was one of the reasons that I switched to YouTube over Twitch, because it saves the chat long term. Sean says a lot of these data sets have equals download in the URL. Yeah, if there's a redirect, try it. Usually redirects won't work. If it is a download link that points directly to the file and doesn't redirect to a download, then yes, it will. If there is a redirect, it won't. Shrug. What were we talking about? Oh, right. So today we're just checking our data. We are not changing anything about our data. What should you check for? So my philosophy on data validation is that you should check the the things that are going to give you the biggest headache if you don't, if down the line your expectations about them are incorrect, right? So things like, is your file the format that you expect it to be, right? So something that I've encountered in the past is data that's supposed to be in XML format. It's got the XML ending, but it's not actually valid parsable XML. So if I then, so XML is that hierarchical data structure, sort of like JSON. And if I pass that data into functions that assume that it's XML that I can parse and perhaps is looking for specific values or keys, it's going to throw up a bunch of errors and be very difficult to work with. I'm speaking from experience here. It was a nightmare. And if you aren't super familiar with the tabular versus hierarchical data thing, I talked about it a little in another notebook that I've linked here. And I've tried to pull together a lot of resources and add links in here throughout, because I know a lot of these things will be old news to people, but some news to some new people. Wow, old news to some people, but new news to others. There we go. And also, I like to check for missing data. So something that can explode things down the line is if you have NAs that you're not expecting, or like the XGBoost toSparse matrix. If you don't have NA.action specified, it will blow up your XGBoost training later on down. Or if you're just trying to do inference, it will also have issues I have run into in the past. And there's some libraries handle NAs in different ways, so knowing that they're there, I think, is fairly important for your workflow. And the data that I loaded in today isn't actually tabular data, so you can see it's sort of in its own beautiful, unique file format. But if your data is in a table, there are other things that I also like to look for. So one thing is I like to make sure I have the columns that I think that I have, and specifically the ones that I'm using in my modeling. So I want to make sure that I have any of my features that I'm using. I want to have my sort of label if I'm relying on a label, so I can check things. And I want to make sure that those are actually there. If you are also relying on having a specific data type in your your column, like a specific date format, like you expect years first or you expect years at the end of the date, I think it's important to check that. One that tends to get people is switching months and days in date formats, so it's good to make sure that you have the numbers are in the order that you expect and that you're relying on them being later on. Austin says, everything I work with is in an RMBDS, a relational database management system, so this is all new to me. Oh, good. I'm glad it's helpful. And I'm pleased for you that you have had such a tidy life experience, because I also work a lot with text data, which tends to be a little bit the Wild West. W.L. Koch says, can Kaggle notebooks A&R handle automatically generating a new analysis/visualization and keeping the old versions around for comparison, clicking back weeks, months to observe changes? Yes. So when you commit a notebook, it will create a new version, and you can go back and look at all of the old versions. And you do have to sort of click through to look at each of the old versions. The automatically generating new analysis If you're talking about automatically versioning, we do that already. If you're talking about automatically running the notebook, I talk about some ways to do that in the dashboarding event notebooks that I have from last time, and also those videos are in on the Kaggle YouTube channel in a playlist. Ooh, sorry, I put my cup down a little hard. And I also mentioned I would talk about Excel. Excel is very useful. Austin says, I didn't say it was clean data. Fair enough. Excel is very useful. It's good for helping you develop intuitions. There's lots of people who do lots of useful things in Excel. I'm not dunking on Excel specifically. The thing that spreadsheet editing software will do is it will be very helpful, and it will intuit what it thinks the format of a column shall be, and if it finds something that's not in that format, it will change it. And so something that has happened a lot and has deeply impacted the scientific literature is gene names are sometimes converted to dates. And if you're trying to do genetic analysis and the name of the name of a gene becomes a date, that changes the anything downstream that relies on having names as opposed to dates, because dates are ordered, names aren't, and all of that. So if you are using Excel, or if someone in your organization is using Excel, it's really helpful to double check that you have data in the format that you expect it to be in. Another thing that Excel will do is it will change the character encoding of the file. If someone that is handing you data is using Excel, it might be worth your time to introduce them to other options. Or just ask that they look at the data after that you are done with your analysis. So maybe move their interaction with the data sort of a different part of the pipeline. Yeah, this has been the source of many headaches for me personally, and hopefully none of you will experience that. But if you do, it's good to know about. And then if you're using data as input for a model, so any sort of parametric model, any sort of model based on a specific assumption about what the distribution is underlying, then it is good to make sure that your data continues to fit those assumptions. So if you're using a model that assumes that your data is normally distributed, it's good to make sure that the new batch of data that you have is also normally distributed. Otherwise, the output that you will get from your model will just be nonsense. It won't be interpretable. So those are the things that I would recommend checking for. If you're checking, different types of data, there's different things that you might look for. Some tooling for this, you will notice that there's more Python tooling than R tooling. I like in Python the CSV validator package, and I wrote an introduction to that again for the dashboarding validation step. It is, as far as I know, the only tabular data validator not for a database that exists in Python, and I have used it and liked it in the past. If you have other suggestions, feel free to put them in the notebook comments. For JSON data, Cerberus is probably the most popular one. There's a lot of tutorials out there about them. I've linked one from the documentation, but there's a bunch of resources. For visualizing missing data, the missing no package is nice. So this package is actually written by Alexi, who used to work at Kaggle. So sort of a little callback, but also it's just a very useful package and can handle a lot of different types of data, including shape files or map data. So if you're working with that, you can sort of visualize what areas are missing in your map data, which is nice. WL Coach says, there's a famous example of Johns Hopkins cancer researchers reading an Excel file and mixing up the row numbers with control/experiment labels. Oh, that's just like, ooh, that gets me right in the squeamish bits. You know how some people don't like pictures of snakes? I don't like hearing about that. Whew. And for checking the specific type of your file, the Python magic module can help you with that. And I've linked to the GitHub repo, and it's very similar to the libmagic identification library, which I believe is in Bash, which is nice if you're in the command line, but if you want to work completely in Python, it's nice to have access to this. I can close all of these links now. In R, I am such a big fan of the validate package. It's so good, you guys. I've written about it previously. It handles any data type. You can save your validators, so like the specific like specifications of what you want your file to look like, as separate objects and pass them around. You don't have to pickle anything. I'm not that you pickle in R. You don't have to use R data files. You don't have to use binaries. I really like the validate package. I know I'm fangirling a bit, but it's so good, you guys. And if someone could like port this to Python, I would be delighted. Ryan says, bad data phobia? Gotta be a name for that. I'm sure there is. Someone who knows Latin. Atul says, can we access it later in time? You should be able to access both the videos and your data, and yes, pretty much everything I'm showing you here, unless somebody ends up taking their data set down, should be available. And also the MIME package, which is by Yihai, I think, has this very small function, this function guess type, that will attempt to intuit what the type of the file is by looking at the file headers. So it looks at the extensions, but it can also look at the file itself and give you sort of a guess. Again, this and Python Magic are going to give you guesses about file types, but better than nothing. Okay, so I gave you guys an exercise. So first up, upload a dataset. Check, we did that. Create a new script kernel. I personally prefer scripts for data validation, but I am going to use a notebook today, just because I think it's a little bit easier to see somebody else coding in a notebook. I don't know. That's just my personal opinion. If you prefer scripts, we can do that. And you can also copy and paste your code from a notebook to a script. No one's going to yell at you. No one has to know. And there are plenty of people that do use notebooks. So I know that Netflix's entire like data science stack is all in notebooks, like 100% of it. So they are used in production as well. And then we're gonna do some tools for data validation. So we want to make sure that the file can be read in. We're gonna be looking for missing data. So for this particular data set, I am interested in the how many lambs were sold. So I want to check to make sure that there is a row that has information about lambs in the data set somewhere. So that's what I'm going to be checking for missing data. If you were doing sort of a tabular data file, you could check for NAs or empty cells. I don't have any columns, so I'm not going to be doing this section where you check for specific columns. Checking for data types. Again, this is just sort of a flat text file, so I guess I could check that it's a string, which it will be. And then an optional thing is to validate another feature of your data that's relevant, so something like character encoding, or if you're doing NLP, maybe you want to make sure that the language that you think is Hungarian actually is Hungarian, and do a little bit of analysis there. And something that I might do is I might check for the week that it is, and make sure that the week in all of our files are the same. And because I know from you guys's discussions, responses to the poll that I did at the beginning, most of you use Python. I'm gonna do this in Python, which, if you know me, is not always my favorite language to work in, but that's okay. So I'm going to make myself a quick little to-do here. So data validation. Oh, and Alan also shared a link for the UK data government site. So that might also be useful for that. All right. Data validation for LAM data. So the things that I want to check for are check for file types, which in this case I think is not as relevant. Sean says, do you program in R and Python? I do. I use both. Actually, I think for this type of like text data, I would probably use Python over R, but I do like the R tooling suites around tabular data in In particular, I'm a big fan of the tidyverse. And then we also want to check for missing data. And where's my, oh, I created it in here. Let's find the data set that I was working with. So to find data sets that you've made previously, go to datasets, go to your data sets, and then it should show up. Yeah, there we go. Lamb auction data. Lamb data. And that was Brian, and WL Koch says, you're a pirate statistician / programmer. Arr. Did I hit the new kernel button? Yes, I hit new kernel and the notebook when it came up. You'd think it would be R, but it's the C, Anders. Amarali says, could you explain about cross-validation? I could, but this is not the particular stream for that. What was I looking for? Oh, right. I was looking for the specific thing that they say when there are lambs. So it is that. Boop. And then we also wanted to get the week that the data is for. So we're going to start by checking for file types. And I'm going to add a new cell up here for imports. And I said that you should import, was it magic? This is also the sort of thing that I would generally do, this type of validation in just sort of like a script locally, usually. But you can do it on Kaggle. What was it called? Was it called Python magic? Tools for data validation. Here we are. Python-magic. And I'm going to quickly look at the docs for this. Anders. Austin said, if you prefer using scripts, why not show us a script instead of a notebook? I'm leaning on you for best practices because I think it's a little bit easier to see coding in a script. And Ilya says on Twitch, you praise R so much. I do like R. What resource would you recommend for a seasoned programmer that already knows Python to learn R? Probably... I think my copy of it is actually at work. Hadley Wickham's Introduction to R, I think that's what it's called. Yeah. There's also, if you're interested in sort of like what's different about R and like under the hood, I would recommend Advanced R, which is also by Hadley Wickham. He's just a really good writer. All right. So it's import magic, magic from file. Import magic. Ooh. Get rid of that. And I'm actually going to import OS and Vista OS. Oh, it's os.list, isn't it? Yeah? Why will you not autocomplete for me? Oh, because I haven't actually imported it. Mystery solved. No. No package called magic, so we're gonna have to add it. Hopefully it's called magic. Hopefully this works. We'll find out. Install magic returned non-zero exit code. Let's try the GitHub package. It's thanking. Andrew says, R for Data Science by Hadley. Yes, it's also available for free online, which is one of the reasons that I recommend it, in addition to it being very good. All right, so we just have to restart, which is this button down here. Yeah, people are like, you didn't press import. Thank you, that's helpful. Run the first cell. I wish there were less of a lag between me doing stuff and you guys giving me helpful advice, because that would make my life better. And now, oh, it's still starting. Interactive session. It was .list. There we go. I don't actually remember what anything's called. I just know what. Requires argument dist pos2 not found. Oh, right. I hit the wrong thing. There we go. All right, so we can see that we've got 2 files. Oh, yep, you could also do magic pip install python magic, which Christopher pointed out. In order for this to work, you're going to need to turn on internet, and I don't have internet turned on right here. I could, but it's been imported, so I think we should be good. Oh gosh, now I have to remember how blobs work. WL says, since both Python and R expand by the day, it seems, how often does Kaggle update its libraries for both? It depends. We try to keep things stable for competitions, so we try not to do like big updates while people are using kernels for competitions, because we don't want to break their code. Fairly often. And you can make specific pull requests on our Docker image as well. All right. Can someone help me with the blob syntax? Do I need to import blob? Python blob. Ranji says, does the complete path required to read the source files? It shouldn't be, but you make a good point. If I choose to change my directory later, I should probably use the absolute, not the relative path, except I've done it wrong. Oh, right, it's /kaggle/input. Yeah? Yeah. Bart says, is it possible to specify a version of a package? Ooh, I think the only way to do that is by using a Docker image that has the specific version that you want. Good question. Let's just try. First of all, let's pass it the correct thing. Input and RH. Let's just do this one so we can see that it's ASCII text. 150. All right, so we can see that so because I didn't say print, I'm only getting the second output, but we can see that we get the same thing. I want to do this over every file, which is, I always have to look up this. Python loop over, loop through the directory. Yep, that's the exact thing that I want. Not using items. I know that I want to use blob. Oh, not dictionary, directory. Azure blob, glob, Unix style path name extensions. All right. OS path name extension. No tilde expansion, glob module, glob.glob. All right, for I in, so the first thing I'm going to need to do is import glob. Yes. For I, nope. Give it a useful file name, Rachel. For I in glob. And we're going to use the absolute file path, Kaggle input, there we go, star, so anything.txt, print magic dot from underscore file. All right. Hey, it worked. Excellent. I'm unable to import some libraries like Quantulum to Kaggle. I would post about that in the product feedback forum. How often does Kaggle add to its Python and R libraries? So that's what I was, when we add new things when we update the Docker version, the Docker image that is passed to the thingadoogle that we use for our notebooks, our kernels when we run them. And again, that happens a little bit sporadically because we want to plan around competitions. I don't know, hopefully that makes sense. So if I was being a little bit more efficient and best practicey, I'd put this into a function and then I'd call the function later. But I want to super quickly go through the rest of this. And I might keep working after time, but I want to at least show you the sort of like basics of what I mean. So let's check for missing data. There's only 2 eyes in missing. The first thing that we want is we want to look for the specific text slaughter lambs. Python OS look for specific text in file. Rachel, you look things up a lot. Yup. Just gonna try and copy paste this. So if SLU, actually we only care about lamb. In open, let's pass it one file to check. So this is going to create an, oh, this is Python 2. Wait, is that Python 2 or Python 3? Which one is the one with the parentheses? I can never remember. /input/file. All right. No, I want to, there we go. Else. Okay, so this file doesn't have lamb in it. Question, is it worth learning Julia? That's a discussion for another time. Daniel says, better to look things up than make things up. That's true. If I just make things up, they won't work. And someone said Python 3. Thank you. I can never remember which it is. So it's Python 3 that has the parentheses in the print statement. Ryan says, I think the true best practice here is talking to yourself while you code. I thought I was the only one. Oh, no. I'm always like muttering away. And Ryan says, someday I'll open a file up without looking at the documentation, but that day hasn't come yet. I feel better. Thanks, guys. So lamb data present in okay, oh wow, okay, can I remember the syntax for F strings? Question, is there any way to encode a kernel script in another IDE and then import it into the Kaggle notebook? Yeah, absolutely. You can upload any notebook using this little up cloud arrow, and it works for scripts as well. All right, Python F string example. One of my friends worked on F strings. I should know how this works. All right, so it's print F and then just the name of the variable. Copy that. And I think you don't have to, I think it's in base Python 3 now. Yeah, okay, PEP 438. So it should be in base Python 3. So Oh, I shouldn't call this, I shouldn't call that file. I should call it something like file name, because I believe file is a Python primitive. Oop. All right. Oh, wait. You have to put an F in front of it. Oop. All right. Eh? Hey, it works. Someone says it changed in 3.6 or 3.7, and someone else pointed out that I need the F in front of it. Thank you. Do you have to do anything to make it case sensitive? Yeah, that's a good question. How about validating the separates are properly removed, escaped in string columns? Literally yesterday, I wrote a function to compare lines of files to rows of the data frame from read_CSV. That would be a good thing to validate. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, you can also copy and paste. We are also... I know that it is a huge pain in my butt to try and get like scripts that I've written and incorporate them into my Kaggle code. So it is something that is a priority for me to help improve in the future. Like I can't make any promises, but it's definitely something I complain a lot about to our extremely patient engineering team. Yeah. I think it will always be uppercase because that is the style guide for this type of file produced by the USDA. Yeah, and somebody says use curly brackets .format ? I believe that the current PEP guideline is to use f strings instead of .format. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on that. So actually, let me double check to make sure. I don't know if regex syntax is gonna work here, but let me check real quick if it will. So I'm gonna say that I can match either uppercase or lowercase lam. It would help if I had a real file name and not a fake file name. All right, so it's not accepting that. Find. So because lam is uppercase and I'm saying this syntax should say either upper or lowercase l is fine. I can tell that this is not regex. Find text in file, Python. What are they looking for? Regex. All right. So do I need to say... so this is... Okay, so this is looking through each line and then running a regex max. This seems like something that would be fairly slow if you had to do it for like 10,000 files. Doing it in bulk read. All right, find all. Okay, so this is reading in all of the file text rather than looking at it line by line through a connector. So this again might be sort of a problem if you have a really big file that you don't want to read into memory. This one's doing it line by line. And it is finding all of the matches rather than seeing if there's any match. So I'm gonna need to do the things. So Brian says if you put an R in front of it, it'll work. Maybe? No? All right, so we got to import re. Okay. And I know there are some differences between the two regex packages in Python, the two most popular ones, and I think that they only apply when you're in the weird parts of Unicode. Does Kaggle notebook/scripts have linters to maintain code syntax? No, I want a linter so much. Yeah, we don't. I noticed R code worked on my laptop, didn't work in the Kaggle R script, so there can be differences between the versions on packages locally and on Kaggle. Yeah, that's true. A while ago, I put together a little sample of how to get the versions of packages on Kaggle. All right, keep going. So what was I doing? So I was checking to see if it was uppercase or lowercase lamb, because it does not matter if it's one or the other for us. So line in text files. So with for if in Python in file regex find Mohit says if text in file.open file.textr.read. Yeah, so the thing that we're thinking about here is whether so we want, okay, so basically the thing that we're trying to find here is we want a match whether it's lowercase lamb or uppercase lamb. Actually, how can I do or if in file more than one input or? Is this gonna know I'm looking for Python? That's not Pung, that's not R. Sorry, that is JavaScript. For a second I was like, is that R? Oh, there's probably better ways to do this. It might be case sensitive and already it's not, unfortunately, because there should be, so if we do uppercase L, we should get a match. So we see that it's present. If it's lowercase, we don't have a match. Can I just say or? Huh? 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 Does that work? All right, and let's try it with the other. Okay, so that's not what we want. Someone says try putting it outside of the quotes. Well, we're still getting that it's there. So if we just search for lamb, we will not get a match because there is no lamb data in this file. Oh, interesting. Yeah, so we won't get a match if it's that. You're currently looking for rlam or rlam. Try the R outside your quotes. So maybe this will work. Lamb data missing. Okay, what about in the other one? Because I know that I do have lamb data in here. Lamb data missing. Okay, so that doesn't work. Lamb is not, oh, I see. So I was checking for, if it's a string, then print yes, and it was in fact a thing that existed. How about we just do this? All right, close enough. And then let's put the whole thing in a function. And gotta indent all of this. So what I've done is instead of looking for uppercase L or lowercase l, I've looked for the rest of the string. Excellent. And so we can see that lamb data is missing in RH_ls150 and present in RH_ls150. Hold up. That's not right. Also, I'll be right back. And I'm back. I changed the time that the vacuum starts because I was like, surely I'll be done by then. Oh, I see the problem. Yeah, excellent. So this will loop through our file and tell us if our lamb data is missing or present. And we probably also want to do this. So I'm just trying to make the thing that I print out to be a little bit more informative so that I know which file I'm getting the information from. File type, let's call it that. And then I'm going to print another F string. Except it should be in here, and nope, it should be outside the quotes. There we go. Is, and I probably want spaces around that, file type. So now I should get, yeah, there we go. Okay, and then let's just quickly get the month that we're interested in. So get the specific week that the data was for. I know we did find about the vacuum again. Okay, so let's look at the file, which I have left in my second browser window that I was keeping open for that. Clunk, clunk, clunk. My neighbors are moving furniture. So the thing that we are looking for is this that has the week information on it. So what's going to be the best way to get this? So this isn't a parsable file format. So this is a place where it makes sense for us to use regex. So I might actually, I think the thing that would be most useful would be to get this whole line that says what the summary includes. I'm going to make sure that that's the same in both these files. It's not. It's not the same. Okay, helpful. So it does have, they do have this header that looks to be consistent that has information on when the data was actually updated. But you can see that like here is the information for when the week happened. Do they both have week in the same title? Nope, they both have week in the same line. So I'm trying to figure out regexes that we can use to figure this out. Regular expressions to search through the file. And it looks like it's going to be a little bit difficult because these aren't in the same format. And if the two files aren't in the same format, we can't know that it's going to be in the same format week to week. But the file headers look to be consistent. So you can see that this has Richmond, VA, and then, is this a tab? It looks like some spaces, and then it has the date that the file was uploaded. So it might be helpful to get just the date that the file was uploaded and extrapolate the date of the information in it from there, but we don't necessarily know that the date that the file uploaded means that the data is from the previous week, if that makes sense. Richard says, is it normal to not be able to create a dataset in Kaggle from data.gov? I keep getting an error, but it isn't really informative. I know there's a size limit, but the JSON isn't that big. So things that it could be, if the API doesn't support the head command, that's how we validate the data. So that could be an issue. There could be a redirect, and when the connector reaches out for the file isn't there. It's just sort of like a pointer to the file being in a different place. Yes, and the data.gov is extremely variable. I mean, you can see even the same state, the same information, the same agency, the information that's been passed in is pretty different, the file format of the information. So I think the thing that we're going to get is we're going to get this date that the file was uploaded and use that as our proxy for the date that's actually, the dates that are actually in the file. Rachel, that's hacky and awful. Yup. Again, so this is why you'd want to validate this. You want to make sure that it's in the format that you expect, because if I'm looking for a date and it's not there, or if I get this date instead of this date, I would have a different understanding of what that actually means. How different are the file formats of these? Okay, so for the actual important data, it looks like it's fairly similar. All right, get info about when the data was uploaded. And I'm probably actually going to put all of these same things in a single function, and I'm going to print out information on each file together. Someone said, I wonder if after the shutdown there would be several weeks of data published at once. Maybe, or we could just have missing data. Yeah, it's hard to tell. Austin says it could already exist on Kaggle. Yes, you will get an error if you try to upload data that's already on Kaggle. So the thing that I am interested in with, oops, I went forward. Let me go back. I know this is a little bit of a longer stream, but I think it can be helpful to sort of walk through other people's processes. And we've covered sort of like the content that I wanted to cover. So now it's just sort of us futzing around. Let's play everything. So you can see it saved my session when I ran this first cell. It wasn't cell 1, it was cell 39. And everything that we had is still in memory. Okay. Let's find the file. Is it file.open? As f. Is it read lines? Let's see. Python read lines. Reads until end of file using read lines and returns a list containing that line. Okay. File object dot. So it would be f dot read lines. String object has no attribute open. Oh, I see. So I shouldn't have said file.open. I should have just said with open. Excellent. So now I've read all the lines into memory and then done nothing with it. Ryan says, the files don't even have similar contents. One of them is feeder cattle and the other is something else. Yeah, so there would be quite a bit of data cleaning that you would need to do to get the data out of here, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. Safara says, f.readlines. Ah, thank you. Again, this like delay, your very helpful advice is getting to me a little bit late. I'm not ignoring you. Okay, so I want to read the lines and I want to find a line with a specific thing in it. Let's see. Python read line with specific string. That's a lot of nested ifs. Oh, that's a lot of nested loops. Listen, if there's one thing I've learned as an R programmer, it's that nested loops are extremely bad and you should avoid them whenever possible. So I'm trying to get the line that starts with a specific thing. I guess I could find the match instead. Yeah, so let's do I'm gonna save this out as a variable called text, and then I'm gonna quickly print it out to make sure that it is what I think it is. Yeah, excellent. So this is just read in the entire file, which we probably don't want to do every time for just size reasons. Hi Ryan, welcome to YouTube. Mohit has a suggestion, f.readlines if string in lines. Oh, that's helpful. And it isn't such a big idea when the file is 10 lines long, but I'm also thinking that this is something that later we might want to scale up and apply to, say, all of the auction data from every auction house in the US. And if you're reading in 10 lines of auction, 100,000 times every day, that can quickly become a little bit of a problem. So let's try this out. I'm not familiar with this syntax. Richmond, VA, capital of Virginia, if you did not know. Oh, I think I don't need this. I think this is saying read the line if it's in the lines? No. Oh, I see, 4 lines. For line. Let's see. Oh, I see. Unfortunately, it happens. Dot star. Will that work? Okay, so it doesn't like regular expressions. I'm just gonna look it up. Regular expressions in Python. Give me the baby version. Python regular expressions tutorial. Yes, tell me how to do it. All right, re.match, which I think I've imported. Re.match are and let's try this regular expression just to make sure it's good. So this little dot question mark in here is, oh, actually I do want that in a group, means any number of characters. Let's do it from text. Extracted string or bytes-like object. Oh, someone says if line dot starts with, that looks very helpful. And that was Mohit. In string requires string as left operand, not Boolean. In? Oh, that's right, because it's going to give a Boolean instead. There we go. Okay, so this is printing out so let's call this, let's call this file. Which I think is what I called it up here. No, I think I called it for file. Let's call it file name. File name. So we're gonna print f date file name info, except I only want one parenthesis. Okay, there we go. So now we have the information for when it was published, and I'm just printing the whole thing instead of thing. Oh, and people are telling me about the inline. Thank you, that's helpful. Oh, excellent. And Montez has example for here. So file name.read. So their suggestion is that we convert the whole file to lower and then look for lowercase lam, which does seem to work. Excellent. Thank you. That's very helpful. Okay. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff, and I want to put it into a single function that I can run real quick over every file that is in the specific directory that I'm looking for. So I'm actually going to put all of these little bits in here. I could probably put each of them into their own function, but we are in a little bit of a time crunch because I don't want you guys to have to hang out all day watching me code, even though it would be fun for me. I think it's a little bit unfair for everyone else. And I don't want to have like a 5-hour stream. That seems too long. All right, and get rid of you. And then, and we call it file everywhere else. We can call it file here, and we can call it file here. So this should give us just a bunch of information all at once in a sort of hard to read format when we run it. Let's see if it do. Excellent. So I can probably get rid of this. Get rid of this thing that just says the file name. Actually, I think the most useful thing is going to be to print validation info for, and then for here I do want to put the name of the file. Yep. File type /t. So I'm going to try to align these up. /d present. And I'm just sort of making this a little bit easier to read and quickly scan. Also, if I wanted, because I'm using tabs to separate them, if I wanted to read this into a tab separated file, I could later on. Someone says, instead of pair programming, group programming, global scrum. I've also heard it called mob programming. And Kensugi says, I might have joined too late. No worries, the recording is available. Actually, you should be able to go back and watch from the beginning now, I'm thinking. And I still have no idea how to use regular expressions to interact with files. That's okay. But I'll save that for later. And because I am trying to make these a little bit more, there we go. Hey, look how that, isn't that nice? Isn't that nice to look at? I think that's nice to look at. I'm extremely pleased. So we have the file type, we have information on whether or not the lamb data is there, and then we have file info. So the only thing left to do, get rid of you, get rid of you, get rid of this specific, and we're gonna do, we're gonna call this directory, and we're gonna put it all in a function. Probably we should put it in like 3 functions, 1 function for each thing that I'm checking for, because that's good modular code design. But listen, it's 10:30 and I do have other things to do today, as much as I'm enjoying hanging out with you guys. Like say, finish the content for tomorrow. So def, oh my gosh, I don't remember the Python function syntax. I don't remember the syntax for this. Yeah. Okay, def function name parameters. Def check. Oh, beans, is it supposed to be capitalized? think it's supposed to be capitalized because it's a function. Check lam data. And I think actually camel case is preferred, but you know what? Oh well. Directory and then I think it's got to be 3 for the documentation. Oh, and people are telling me the very helpful information, like just like the second after I need it. I need to figure out how to reduce the latency on the stream. That would be very helpful. Function to check the file type presence of lam data and does that look like 180 characters? I don't know. I don't have a good idea of how long Python line should be. Presence of lam data and header with Virginia USDA info for what are they called? Livestock auction reports. For VA, livestock auction reports, because it's not going to work with other data. Okay, so we've got our function, shaboom, and then it should, if we pass in Kaggle input to this function check lam data that we have now defined, we should get our nice pretty output out. Oh, nope. Hey, it works. Oh, someone says functions lowercase, class uppercase. Thank you. And I don't want to give it the specific file name. I want to give it the directory instead, because then I can run it over each thing in the directory instead of having to go through and specify that I want to do each file. That's just my personal preference. All right. And then if I was... So if I had this in a script, I could import the script to my, we didn't actually end up using RE, we did use Magic, we did use EOS, we did use Glob. So I can end up importing this function to my, oops, it's not gonna work with a uppercase C. I can import this function to my script and import the script to my notebooks, use the script really quickly just to validate that my data looks the way that I think it should look, and get like some helpful information out. So what I'd probably do at this point is just copy and paste all of this into a script and then call it and then run it when I wanted to validate my data. Check R. And if I add additional information and other files, and as they get updated, I can just like quickly like bam, 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 quick little check. Does everything look okay? Good. And continue moving on. Yeah, so that is my, took slightly longer than I thought it would. Validation tutorial, I guess, sort of workshop, maybe, I don't know, work through. And that's what I do when I have files that I want to, you know, like double check and make sure that they're good. Obviously, you're going to have to do quite a bit of, you know, custom work. That's why people hire data scientists, because it takes some human labor to figure this out. So quite a bit of custom work to get the exact information that I wanted for my thing. I could have made it a little bit more robust by looking for, maybe I could have found like the first date in the file. That might have helped. And the data, the files themselves are going to need some serious data cleaning before we can get to the point where we can use them for our analyses, but that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. We're going to talk a little bit about ETL and how you would do that sort of cleaning in a reproducible way that makes your life easier and faster instead of, not that it makes your life faster, it makes your work faster instead of harder and slower. So thanks so much for joining me today, guys. I hope this was informative and you enjoyed my struggle. I'm pretty happy with this. I feel like we finished the thing that we set out to start. It definitely took more than 20 minutes. I blame me talking on it. And I will see you tomorrow, and we're going to talk about ETL, and we're actually going to set up a pipeline on Kaggle. So far we've been loading in data sets to Kaggle that are from off of Kaggle. Tomorrow we're going to talk about, so you have a data set, you want to do some things to it. How do you you know, double check to make sure that everything is the way you want it, and then actually change the data in some way and pass it on to the next thing. And that's what we will do tomorrow. And hopefully I'll see you guys then. And if I don't, the recordings will be available into the future. Oh, and actually let me commit and make this public so you guys can have a link to it as well. Yeah, and I'll try to be a little bit more active on the forums today. Unfortunately, there were some bugs I ran into yesterday, and I spent a lot of time with the engineering team figuring them out. They're not user-facing. It was just something that I was testing internally. And hopefully no one will ever see the bugs but me. But I'll try to be a little bit better about it today. All right, talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.